Hey everybody, this one is called Do It Yourself Kangaroo Courts number 18, Certificate of Participation. First of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I'm in a lawyer. No, I'm in a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I've provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything and I'm open to any ideas. There's four types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? Think about it, folks. If you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If people do not know their basic rights and freedoms, then how can they possibly know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana growing, whiskey drinking, tax evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the pigs. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Well said, Thomas Jefferson. Okay, well, this is called a certificate of participation. And this is taken from a video that I saw by someone else that made a lot of sense. And if you go to CODA's Federal Regulations, 17 CFR, Section 240, point 15C2-12, it's municipal securities disclosure. And it goes on. For a discussion of disclosure obligations relating to municipal securities, issuers, brokers, dealers, and municipal securities dealers should refer to the Securities Act. Okay, so these they're operating under the Securities Act. Okay, that's all under the Uniform Commercial Code. The municipal securities. Okay, the issuer. Think about it. If there's an issuer, then it is the Sestake Trust. Okay, or the municipal corporation. Okay, they're the issuer. And it's called talking about bonds, folks. This is, people always wonder, I mean, they say that they're issuing a bond. Well, they are, but they don't call it that. They call it a certificate of participation. And for a discussion of the obligations of underwriters who have a reasonable basis for recommending municipal securities, brokers, dealers, and municipal securities dealers should refer to the Securities and Exchange Act, release number 26100, September 22nd, 1988. General, as a means of reasonably designed to prevent fraud, deceptive, or manipulative acts or practices, it shall be unlawful for any broker, dealer, or municipal securities dealer, a participating underwriter when used in connection with an offering, to act as an underwriter in a primary offering of municipal securities with an aggregate principal amount of $1 million or more. So they are, remember, it's under the Uniform Commercial Code. They're forging their signature onto a contract, securitizing it, and selling it on Wall Street. It's exactly what these pigs are doing. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video on YouTube. Don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. There's the front page of my channel. The subscribe button's already been clicked, otherwise it'd be red. And the bell has not been clicked because it doesn't look like it's vibrating. The arrow is pointing at the bell. So if you want to be notified, you got to click the bell. Anyways, and it continues. Prior to the time of the participating underwriter bids for purchases, offers, or sells municipal securities, in an offering, the participating underwriter shall obtain and review an official statement that an issuer of such securities deems final as of its date, except that for the omission of no more than the following information: the offering price, interest rates, selling compensation, aggregate principal amount per maturity, delivery dates. So what they're telling us, there's certain requirements for these certificates of participation. Except in competitively bid offerings for the time the participating underwriter has reached an understanding with an issuer of municipal securities that it will become a participating underwriter in an offering until the final official statement is available, the participating underwriter shall send no later than the next business day by first-class mail or other equally prompt means to any potential customer on request a single copy of the most recent preliminary official statement, if any. This is taken from Investopedia. Certificate of participation under bonds, municipal bonds. What is a certificate of participation? Whoops. A certificate of participation is a type of financing where an investor purchases a share of the lease revenues of a program rather than the bond being secured by those revenues. Why do you think these cities are building all these big fancy jails and city halls and all the rest of this stuff and police stations? Okay, how do you think they're financing all of that? Understanding their certificate of participation, a lease financing agreement is used by a municipality or local government to acquire real property. Under the agreement, the local government makes regular payments over the annually renewable contract for the acquisition and use of the property. A lease financing contract is typically made available in the form of a certificate of participation. And up in the top paragraph, it says certificates of participation are secured by lease revenues. See, what I've heard happen is if they drag you into their so-called court, then you just say, I want to see a copy of your certificate of participation, and they'll kick your butt out of there. And you say, well, I'm not challenging the dispute of this, and they'll just kick your butt out of there. And the reason is because when individuals acting as representatives of a collective group cannot be said to be exercising their personal rights and duties nor be entitled to their purely personal privileges, they're assaulting you with their Roman cult Sestake trust, and then they're forging your signature onto the contract, and then they're going to sell you into slavery. And that's what it's all about. That's what this is, a certificate of participation. That's evidence of your slavery. Rather, they assume the rights, duties, privileges of the artificial entity or association of which they're agents or officers, and they are bound by its obligations. Whenever the Uniform Commercial Code creates a presumption with respect to a fact or provides that a fact is presumed, see, this is all international law under the Uniform Commercial Code. The trier of fact must find the existence of the fact unless and until evidence is introduced that supports the finding of its non-existence. Evidence. Evidence is introduced. Gee, that means an affidavit. In an action with respect to an instrument, the authenticity of and authority to make each signature on the instrument are admitted, unless specifically denied in the pleadings. Say, forge your signature onto a contract. If the validity of a signature is denied in the pleadings, the burden of establishing validity is on the person claiming validity, but the signature is presumed to be authentic and authorized. They forge your signature onto a contract, and then they sell you into slavery. So nip it in the bud by telling them you want to see their certificate of participation. The following rules apply in an action on a certificate of security against the issuer, unless specifically denied in the pleadings. Each signature on a security certificate or in a necessary endorsement is admitted. They forge your signature onto a contract, and then they sell you into slavery. That's what it's all about. That's called a quasi-contract. In the sense of public international law, the several states of the Union are neither foreign to the United States nor are they foreign to each other, but such is not the case in the field of private international law. The United States government is a foreign corporation with respect to a state of the Union. State statutes are actually national statutes. Fifth, this is U.S. Supreme Court, Downs versus Bidwell. Fifth, the U.S. Constitution has undoubtedly conferred on Congress the right to create such municipal organizations as it may deem best for all the territories of the United States, whether they've been incorporated or not, to give to the inhabitants as respects the local government such degree of representation as may be conducive to the public well-being, to deprive such territory of representative government if it is considered just to do so, and to change such local governments at discretion. So again, if you're in a territory, okay, under martial law, then that's what they do. Key is not to be in a territory, and that's going to be my next video about a republican form of government. There are 2 states in every state. There's been created a fictional federal state of XXX within a state. See Howard versus Sinking Fund of Louisville. And then and Dowds versus Bidwell. 2 national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. Now, that's not a direct quote out of that case, but that is a summary. Oh, look at that. Indiana and Company. 3,460,000 stockholders engaged in providing peace, justice, security, opportunity, health, highways, education, conservation, recreation. Indiana and Company. Every citizen is a stockholder in 4,300 school buildings. And this stuff is kind of hard to read. 968 miles of highways, 34 state parks and memorials, 19 state universities, 4 colleges and universities, state library, state fair, and is entitled to, something rendered at all state departments. It's hard to read some of that stuff. Up here, this certificate, this entitles that every Indiana citizen is the owner of a full share of the capital stock of Indiana and Company. This is the report for the fiscal year beginning in July 1st, 1936 and ending June 30th, 1937, prepared by the Indiana Gross Income Tax Division, Indiana Department of the Treasury Board. Well, does it still say Indiana citizen is entitled to a full share? I doubt it. It's probably been bankrupt and seized, and it's now owned by the creditors, who are the Roman cult and the bankster thieves. Oh, you think that's going on just in Indiana? Look at this. The Judiciary Courts of the State of Texas is a subsidiary of State of Texas, Inc., as found in the affidavit of Daniel Lee Swank, which is recorded with the Liberty County Recorder at recording number 2008010522, which has attached a Dun & Bradstreet listing for the Judiciary Courts of the State of Texas. Year started 1845, headquarter location Supreme Court Building, Austin, Texas 78701. Top executive Thomas R. Phillips, Chief Justice. Business type corporation, for profit. And on page 2 it shows, as noted, this company is a subsidiary of Texas State of Inc. State court system, which includes the Supreme Court and Court of Criminal Appeals, Court of Last Resort, 14 courts of appeals with 80 judges, district courts with 386 judges, criminal district court with 10 judges, and county level court with 445 judges. And oh, look at this. This looks like the actual recording. Look at that. There's the number, 2008010522, 3 pages. State of Texas, County of Liberty. Gee, that sounds like Deer Park Cash Cow. Watch my video. The state of Texas does not exist. That's actually it's a assumed name for Deer Park Cash Cow LLC. There's the Dun & Bradstreet report. Judiciary Courts of the State of Texas, subsidiary of Texas State of Austin, which is a assumed name for Deer Park Cash Cow LLC. State court system, a for-profit corporation. Oh, this is up close. Okay, subsidiary Texas State of. Not the state of Texas is required by the Constitution, by the way. It's State of Texas, okay, and that's a assumed name for Deer Park Cash Cow LLC. For-profit corporation. There's the second page. We're going to get in closer. As noted, this company is a subsidiary of Texas State of Inc. State court system, which includes Supreme Court, Court Criminal Appeals, Courts of Last Resort, 4 courts of appeals with 80 judges, district courts 386 judges, criminal district court with 10 judges, county level courts with 445 judges. The department maintains 14 courts of appeals, 375 district level courts, and 420 county level courts. Oh, and there's the bottom. Official records, Liberty County Recorder, State of Texas. That's not the state of Texas, notice. It's just State of Texas, County of Liberty. That's an assumed name for Deer Park Cash Cow. My contact information is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin at yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page is deleted due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group of Sovereignty International on Facebook is being deleted. You know, I hardly ever go there anymore. Facebook is a has-been. They're a waste of time. My Yahoo private group is Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. My Google private group is Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. And I have a new private group called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants at groups.io. Follow me on Twitter at Engineer Win. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. And I have a BitChute profile, Sovereignty International. But I don't have all my videos there because they don't let me upload anything more than 500 megs. And so I've got quite a few videos that are over a gig. My Patreon channel is Sovereignty International. And Texas territory in this state means within the exterior limits of Texas and includes all territory within these limits ceded to or owned by the United States. Okay, so includes is limiting. This Texas tax code includes is limiting. Supreme Court, Montello Salt versus U.S. include or the participial form thereof is defined to comprise within, to hold, to contain, enclose, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve. That means it's only what's in there. So, in this state means within the exterior limits of Texas and is all territory within these limits ceded to or owned by the United States. Okay? So, if you're in Deer Park Cash Cow, then I guess you're in there. Include, to confine within. This is American Dictionary of English Language, Noah Webster, 1828. Again, to confine within, to hold, to contain. The shell of a nut includes the kernel. A pearl is included in the shell. To comprise, to comprehend, to contain. And in Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. To shut up, to keep within, to confine within, to hold as an enclosure, include as limiting. That's, in other words, whatever it includes is all that's in there. There's nothing else. The owner of a motor vehicle registered in this state, that means in federal areas of Texas, may not operate or permit the operation of the vehicle on a public highway until the owner obtains and it goes through, in this state. It's a person may not operate a motor vehicle registered in this state. The owner of a motor vehicle that's required to be titled and registered in this state. A person other than a person expressly exempted under this chapter may not operate a motor vehicle on a highway in this state. A person may not operate a motor vehicle in this state. That's Transportation Code requirement of financial responsibility. Transportation Code, vehicles and equipment subject to inspection. A motor vehicle, trailer, semi-trailer, pole trailer, or mobile home registered in this state. Texas Government Code. A municipal court of record is presided over by one or more municipal judges. A municipal judge must have 2 or more years' experience in practice of law in this state. So, municipal court member, municipal corporations are only in District of Columbia and the territories. Okay, so again, that's because of the military occupation. An assistant prosecuting attorney must be licensed to practice law in this state. Federal areas of Texas only. Qualify for appointment as an associate judge under this subchapter. A person must be a resident of the state, have been licensed to practice law in this state. Texas Government Code. The Board of Law Examiners, acting under instructions of the Supreme Court as provided in this chapter, shall determine the eligibility of candidates for examination for a license to practice law in this state. You only need a license to practice law in federal areas of Texas. Office of Court Administration of the Texas Judicial System shall develop and maintain a model for the uniform written jury summons in this state. Texas Government Code. Texas Tax Code. All real, tangible, personal property has in this state has jurisdiction tax, is taxable unless exempt by law. This state has jurisdiction to tax real property if located in this state. It's all about in this state. That's federal areas of Texas. Law enforcement agencies are in this state. Each law enforcement agency in this state. Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. A warrant of arrest is only in federal areas of Texas. That's the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. A search warrant. No search warrant shall be issued for any purpose in this state. It's only in federal areas of Texas. Under Title IV, United States Code, this is all for territories. Okay, the flag, the seal, the seat of government, the states, official territorial papers. It's all for territories. Oath of members of the legislature and officers. It's all territorial. So it's all because of the military occupation. I have exclusive content available on my website and Patreon. Website has 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. It's $29.99 a year for the videos only, $49.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. Now, I am not a liar. Well, I'm in an attorney. Well, no, I'm in a liar, but I can tell you what I would do and where to find the forms. So you have to understand that there are limitations to the unlimited consultations, because I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what I would do and where to find the forms. The only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight all the battles. I need other people fighting the battles as well. So if you want to make a donation, get a subscription, I should say, as a donation. It's a modest donation, there's no doubt about it, but everything is appreciated, and a whole bunch of people chipping in a little bit adds up pretty fast. I'm currently publishing 1 video a week. Some of my videos are the Arlington Private Information Share, which is 9 videos alone. Land deed training, I've got like 2 or 3 of those. Estoppel certificates training, foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll roads notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, and federal habeas corpus training. There's also revocation of voter registration training, there's criminal complaint training, and there is 1 lawsuit training video, although there will be more. It's a basic one. Then there's other training depending on requests and depending on whether if I haven't done it already, because I don't want to be redundant, and whether it's something that I can do. There's also Northeast Private Information Share videos. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free on my 2 private groups at Yahoo Groups and Google Groups, and now on my group at groups.io. Matter of fact, Yahoo has removed all the files, so the files are no longer on Yahoo, but they are on groups.io. All exclusive content is available on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. And Patreon. My other content is Sovereignty International at Patreon. All hospitals and healthcare are in territories. All financial institutions are in the territories. Banks, real estate, insurance, etc. All labor organizations, all law enforcement agencies, all government agencies, church, cities, counties, municipal corporations, all taxes are federal. The officers of their court are U.S. citizens. They're demanding Federal Reserve notes. All their LEOs are U.S. citizens. They're demanding Federal Reserve notes, and Federal Reserve notes are meant for internal use of the government only. This is the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, located at 48 Stat 337. Section 15, as used in this act, the term United States means the government of the United States, and the term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States and includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes. And Federal Reserve notes are meant only for internal use in the government. Under international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by a nom de guerre, because an alien enemy cannot maintain an action during the war in his own name. A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and the other by a mere private person. So that's warfare. That's what they're doing. Capitis diminutio means the diminishing of status through the use of capitalization. In Roman law, diminishing or abridgment of personality, a loss or curtailment of a man's status or aggregate of legal attributes and qualifications. Capitis diminutio maxima, meaning a maximum loss of status through the use of capitalization. The highest or most comprehensive loss of status. This occurred when a man's condition was changed from one of freedom to one of bondage, when he became a slave. It has swept away all the rights of citizenship and all family rights. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. And they're making war on you under the Trading with the Enemy Act, which is found at Title 50, United States Code, Appendix 5. The President, if he shall find it compatible with the safety of the United States and with the successful prosecution of the war, may, during the time of the war, the President may, through any agency that he may designate and under such rules and regulations as he may prescribe by means of instructions, licenses, or otherwise, regulate, direct, and compel, nullify, void, prevent, and prohibit or exercise any right, power, or privilege with respect to any property by any person subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and upon the terms directed by the President in such agency or person, and such designated agency or person may perform any and all acts incident to the accomplishment or furtherance of these purposes. It actually is quite a bit longer than that. I mean, when you see the 3 dots, that means a bunch of stuff was left out because there wasn't enough room here. But, so, I mean, they can do literally anything. It's all commercial warfare. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. U.S. citizens are enemies of the state. An act to terminate certain authorities with respect to national emergencies still in effect and to provide for orderly implementation and termination of future national emergencies, which was approved on September 14, 1976 at 90 Stat 1255, where it says, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled that this act may be cited as the National Emergencies Act. Section 502 says the provisions of this act shall not apply to the following provisions of law, the powers and authorities conferred thereby and actions taken thereunder. Section 5B of the Act of October 6, 1917 as amended. And that's the Trading with the Enemy Act, that 50 United States Code, Appendix 5B, right? That's this. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by statutes. They'd be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by martial law. So, again, if you understand what's going on, you just tell them, I want to see your certificate of participation. And they're going to drop that like a hot potato because they have to produce it. In the meantime, civil law was the form of law imposed on the Roman Empire, which was largely, if not wholly, governed by martial law rule. Equity has always been understood to follow the law. To have superior equity is to turn things on their head. This is exactly what happens when martial law is imposed. If equity is the law, then it follows its own course rather than following the common law, thereby destroying the common law and leaving what is called equity in its place. That's why that bail priest will sit up there and he'll say, I can do anything I want in this courtroom, and he's right. Because there's no common law, it's under martial law. Unless you bring up the issue of a Republican form of government. And that is my next video. That's taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by the a judge, A.H. Ellett. I don't know why that says assistant director of the Utah Supreme Court, and the case Diet versus Turner. The exclusive jurisdiction which the United States have in forts and dockyards ceded to them is derived from the express assent of the states whom the cessions are made. It could be derived in no other manner, because without it the authority of the state would be supreme and exclusive therein. That's under a Republican form of government. Okay, so you have to bring up the issue. It's a well-established principle of law that all federal regulation applies only within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. That means territories. There is a canon of legislative construction that teaches Congress that unless a contrary intent appears, legislation is meant to apply only within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. So that's why you ask them for a certificate of participation. There's two ways to approach it. You can tell them you want to see the certificate of participation, or you can tell them, so you're telling me you intend to perjure your oath. Is that correct? And they're going to say, why are you saying that? Well, because under Article 4, Section 4, I'm entitled to a Republican form of government. And that doesn't include military commissioners under the Lieber Code. That doesn't include your military police. That doesn't include, all the stuff that's going on right now. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. That's the location of the debtor. If the citizen acquires the same legal status, the artificial character as those protected by the amendment through the operation of some statutory law of Congress, then said citizen may be brought within the venue of the amendment as a statutory juristic person. By this means, citizens' birthrights become of no effect, and their rights are reduced to the inferior character of statutory civil rights, mere legislative privileges. That's taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge H. Ella to the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. Check out my other videos: Bankster Thieves playlist, Roman Cult playlist, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1 through 4. Actually, it's 1 through 5. Do-it-yourself, how not to volunteer for the selective service in the draft, martial laws here, do-it-yourself, no income tax, do-it-yourself, free mail, do-it-yourself, kangaroo courts, 1 through 19 soon. Canada Border Pigs playlist, Bar Members and their Satanic Connections playlist. So there's two citizens, two classes of citizens, or free inhabitants. There's federal citizens, or you can be a state citizen without being a U.S. citizen. Do you know who you are? Watch the Do You Know Who You Are video. A U.S. citizen is not entitled to an Article III court, but instead gets an Article I court with a plenary military dictatorship jurisdiction. Article I, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution for the United States of America, as defined and reinstated in National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, which further states that citizens under the District of Columbia are not embraced by the judicial power under Article 3 of the Constitution for the United States of America. The same statement is held in Hepburn versus Dundas versus Elysi, located at 2 Cranch 445. In 1804, the Supreme Court, through Chief Justice Marshall, held that a citizen of the District of Columbia is not a citizen of a state. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within the Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states are not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington, District of Columbia, and through their plenary power nationally covers those citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And that's National Mutual Insurance Company of District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. And this is where it's codified. If any citizen or resident of the United States does not reside in, is not found in any United States judicial district, such citizen or resident shall be treated as residing in the District of Columbia for purposes of any provision of this title to A, jurisdiction of the courts, or B, enforcement of summons. And that's 26 U.S.C. 770139, or it could also be a 26 U.S.C. 7408C, depending on which version of the United States Code you look at. And I don't know how many of you remember Lindsey Graham talking to Kavanaugh during the Kavanaugh hearings when Kavanaugh was being grilled by Congress for the Supreme Court. And they talked about how a U.S. citizen in Afghanistan was subject to federal law, and Kavanaugh said, yes, he is. And that's why. Doesn't matter where he's at. The term individual means a citizen of the United States or alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. The term federal personnel means officers and employees of the government of the United States, members of the uniformed services, including members of the reserve components, individuals entitled to receive immediate or deferred retirement benefits under any retirement program of the government of the United States, including survivor benefits. So that means anybody with a Social Security number is federal personnel. That's located at 5 U.S.C. 552 AA 13. Title 5, U.S. Code Title 5, Government Employees and Organization. The term citizen of the United States is analogous to the term subject in the common law. Residents, as distinguished from citizens, are aliens who are permitted to take up a permanent abode in the country, being bound to the society by reason they are dwelling in it. They are subject to its laws. So long as they remain there and being protected by it, they must defend it, although they do not enjoy the rights of citizens. They have only certain privileges which the law or custom gives them. Permanent residents are those who have been given the right of perpetual residence. They are a sort of citizen of a less privileged character and are subject to the society without enjoying all its advantages. Their children succeed to their status with a right of perpetual residence given them by the state passes to their children. And that's taken from the Law of Nations by Vattel, Book 1, Chapter 19, Section 213, page 87. Every taxpayer is assessed to K trust having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. That's a summary of In re Bolens. And a citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the Public Charitable Trust, the Constructive Sesticate Trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and U.S. Inc. And that's a summary of congressional record dated June 13, 1967, of 5 pages of the congressional record. This is an act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia, which was approved on March 3, 1901 by the 56th Congress, Session 2, 31 Stat. 1189. In addition to the jurisdiction conferred to the preceding section, plenary jurisdiction, that's military dictatorship, folks, is hereby given to said court holding a said special term to hear and determine all questions relative to the execution of any and all wills. And at 31 Stat 1432, it says the illegal estate to be in the Sesticate use. Okay, so it's the Sesticate Trust. It's tying it all into the Sesticate Trust. And this is, and again, the more of the DC code located at 31 Stat 1189 up at the very front, and be it further enacted that an interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules shall be observed, namely, third, the word person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations unless such construction would be unreasonable, and reference to any officer shall include any person authorized by law to perform the duties of the office. Fourth, the word executor is used as it shall include administrator and vice versa, and so again, you can be, the best position is the general executor, okay? So again, this is all talking about corporations. So a U.S. citizen is a government employee and a Sesticate Trust, a fictitious entity. It's impossible to prove jurisdiction exists absent a substantial nexus with the state, such as a voluntary subscription to a license. All jurisdictional facts supporting a claim that supposed jurisdiction exists must appear on the record of the court. Causes and necessities for taking up arms. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits, for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law, instead thereof to publish nor the use and exercise of the law martial. Okay, so this is exactly the same stuff that's been going on, and this was going on that caused the War of Independence. That's why you want to tell them you want a Republican form of government. Okay, that's in my next video. He's combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution, unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Gee, that sounds like color of law. That sounds like martial law. For imposing taxes on us without our consent, that's more martial law. For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by a jury, that's more martial law, and that's all taken from the Declaration of Independence. And there's a lot more stuff than that in there. Let me tell you, Declaration of Independence is full of this kind of stuff. And it only took 2 years. This is 1778. George chapter 13, George III, chapter 13, 1778. 2 years after the Declaration of Independence. And it says, whereas taxation by the Parliament of Great Britain for the purpose of raising a revenue in His Majesty's colonies, provinces, and plantations as in North America is found by experience to occasion great uneasiness and disorders. Well, no shit, Batman! That from and after the passing of this act, the King and Parliament of Great Britain will not impose any duty, tax, or assessment whatever payable in any of the colonies, provinces, or plantations in North America or the West Indies, except only such duties as may be expedient to impose for the regulation of commerce. They ought to stretch his neck. They should have. The martial law rule brings in Roman civil law and displaces the law of the land, which is common law. See the martial laws here video. Martial law is brought in by the bankruptcy. See the bankrupt corporate so-called governments video on Banksters 1 video, Banksters 2, and Banksters 3 videos. See the de facto courts video and the Unidroit videos. United Nations is the source of it all. Under Roman civil law, status is everything. Under common law, status is nothing. That's the root of the problem, really, is what it comes down to. They're getting you into one of their so-called contracts. It's literally a contract with the devil. Satanic martial law works on presumption. They presume you're in a contract and go ahead and assault you. If you want any rights, you have to go before one of their bail priests so they can assault you again with their equity and their Roman law. They deliberately screen out intelligent people in the hiring process so they can make more business with their bail priests in the so-called courts. The District of Columbia should be called the District of Criminals. Give me liberty or give me death was a phrase that was coined by Patrick Henry after he witnessed a man flogged to death for refusing to take a license. So these Satanists were shoving one of their satanic contracts down somebody's throat. A license is a contract. It's a right given by some competent authority to do an act without which such authority would be illegal. The instrument or writing which secures this right is also called a license. The most important thing we can do is to stop letting these Satanists divide us so they can conquer us. Most of these satanic statutes are for people who cannot voluntarily respect other people or their property. Our Constitution is made only for a moral and religious people, is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. John Adams. Men, in a word, must necessarily be controlled either by the power within them or by a power without them, either by the word of God or by a strong arm of man, either by the Bible or by the bayonet. And that's the Speaker of the House of Representatives, John Winthrop. That was back in colonial days. So never, ever, ever give up. Okay? That's the important thing here. War is when your government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution's when you figure it out for yourself. So privileges equals slavery. And that's why you want to ask them for that certificate of participation. Because they're selling you into slavery, and this exposes it. The rights of sovereignty extend to all persons and things not privileged that are within the territory. They extend to all strangers resident therein, not only to those who are naturalized and to those who are domiciled therein, having taken up their abode with the intention of permanent residence, but also to those whose residence is transitory. All strangers are under the protection of the sovereign while they're within his territory and owe a temporary allegiance in return for that protection. That's U.S. Supreme Court, 1873. So if you participate in their privileges, you volunteer. That's the contract. A motor vehicle. The term motor vehicle means a self-propelled vehicle which is registered. Okay, that's all they have to do, is it has to be registered. They see that government plate on there, then it's a government-owned vehicle. And then all of the rest of this is talking about commercial instruments. A security means any bond, debenture, note, certificate, or other evidence of indebtedness. This is all negotiable instruments. This is all under the Uniform Commercial Code. And that's taken from the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966, located at Public Law 89-719, and at 80 Stat 1130 and 1131. So the two biggest privileges you get stuck in are Federal Reserve notes and government-owned vehicles, and using a Social Security number. Okay, using the Social Security number is probably the next one. Privilege replacements is private plates and cryptocurrencies. And with Social Security numbers, you gotta get work without using the Social Security number. If more people, that's the reason, quite frankly, I haven't been able to get a job in 7 years, because I'm not going to be a slave. Okay, so I don't use a Social Security number. That's really what it comes down to. Now, I used to get along just fine. I have a trust that I manage and an LLC, and the LLC would get a contract, but I haven't been able to do it with that lately. And so, anyways, that's the way it goes. Maybe I will sooner or later. Who knows? We'll see. So I have plates available, laminated Texas sheet codes. And so I like Texas plates because they can be used anywhere, because all states, Canada, Mexico included, are required to recognize Texas law. This is Texas Transportation Code. This applies to a motor vehicle owned by the state or a political subdivision of a state. And so this is the Certificate of Title Act. Okay, so the Certificate of Title Act applies to a motor vehicle owned by the state or a political subdivision of the state. Is that two of them in a row the same way? Oh no. This is Texas Transportation Code, registration by political subdivision prohibited. A political subdivision of the state may not require an owner of a motor vehicle to register the vehicle, pay a motor vehicle registration fee, or pay an occupation tax or license fee. So they can't require you to register the vehicle. And so they have to recognize Texas law. This is Articles of Confederation, but there's also a similar clause in Article 4 of the Constitution. The full faith and credit shall be given to in each of the states to the records, actions, judicial proceedings of the courts, magistrates, and of every other state. And so that's in the Articles of Confederation, Article 4, Clause 3, and that's also in the Constitution, in Article 4 of the Constitution. And this is a sample of one of the Texas plates that I have. I've got several of them that are available. This is one that's got a number. This is one that's just sui juris. Notice it says private property, no trespassing, exempt. IDP stands for International Driver's Permit, not for hire, non-commercial. And this is actually the one that I use, or one similar to this that I use. And this is another one that I have available. Depends on how you like them. Another one that I have available, it's got a, this is the map, the real map of Texas. That little thing up here is Sheridan, Wyoming. So you can get one plate and one probable cause laminated sheet for 3 pieces of silver, 1 troy ounce each, or $50 in military script. Before you do this, you need to be prepared to defend it, but that is why I have the card in my car, because the discussion should end right there when I show them that nobody's required to register their vehicle. And then I have some very pointed questions that I ask them. My PayPal is engineerwin@hotmail.com, and you could get the Forbidden Zone laminated sheets from catman1@gmail.com. Now the Forbidden Zone laminated sheets have this on it, and some other stuff. Have these 2 things on them, and some other stuff. This is my probable cause laminated sheet. This is one side of it, and this is the other side. And if a cop stopped me for speeding in Texas, I'd say I don't have a problem providing whatever you need, but I got a couple questions first. What's your probable cause for stopping me? If he stopped me for speeding, he'd say that he stopped me for speeding. He'd say that's his probable cause. And I'd say, well, speeding's a Class C misdemeanor. And a Class C misdemeanor is not a crime in Texas, and probable cause requires a crime. So I ask you again, what's your probable cause for stopping me? Or should I just be on my way? Then I would dial 911 and tell them I need the county sheriff there because there's some official oppression going on. Another thing I would do is I would say, so you're telling me that you intend to perjure your oath. Is that correct? I want that on the record. They all have body cams, or most of them have them. So I would want to make sure that's on the record. I'm saying, you're telling me that you intend to subject me to the deprivation of my right to be secure in my person and my papers, to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. Is that correct? You're telling me that you intend to deprive me of my right not to give evidence against myself. Is that correct? You know, you build a case against them for multiple felonies. I'll bet you they'll find somebody else to mess with. A public servant, this is official oppression, abuse of official capacity. A public servant commits an offense with intent to obtain a benefit, or with intent to harm or defraud another. He intentionally or knowingly misuses government property, services, personnel, or any other thing of value belonging to the government that has come into the public servant's custody or possession by virtue of the public servant's office or employment. And so that means when he turns on his emergency lights and it's not a crime, then that's abuse of his emergency lights. And if he's using his radio when it's not a crime, then that's abuse of his radio. And if he's using his police cruiser when it's not a crime, then that's abuse of his police cruiser. A person commits an offense if he intentionally refuses to give his name, residence, address, or date of birth to a peace officer who has lawfully arrested the person and requested the information. And that is failure. That's what they always use that against you, to get you to give information against yourself. Now, the key is that lawfully arrested is the operative word. because if it's not a crime, then there's no lawful arrest. A public servant acting under color of his office or employment commits an offense if he intentionally subjects another to mistreatment or arrest, detention, search, seizure, dispossession, assessment, or lien that he knows is unlawful, intentionally denies or impedes another in the exercise or enjoyment of any right, privilege, power, or immunity, knowing his conduct to be unlawful, or for purposes of this section, a public servant acts under color of his office or employment if he acts or purports to act in an official capacity or takes advantage of such acted, actual, or purported capacity. And that's official oppression. Okay, so when he is stopping you when it's not a crime, then he's engaging in official oppression. And this is impersonating a public servant. A person commits an offense if he impersonates a public servant with intent to induce another to submit to his pretended official authority or to rely on his pretended official acts, or knowingly purports to exercise any function of a public servant or of a public office, including that of a judge in court, and the position or office through which he purports to exercise a function of a public servant or public office has no lawful existence under the constitutional laws of the state or the United States. An offense under this section is a felony of the third degree. 18 U.S.C. 241, conspiracy. Okay? If two or more persons conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him by the constitutional laws of the United States, or because of his having exercised the same, they shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. Okay, so then I would say to him, so you intend to oppress, threaten, and intimidate me in the free exercise of my right to have consumer goods instead of business equipment. Is that correct? You intend to, and I'd get his boss out there and I'd say, so you guys intend to conspire together? Whoever, under color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom, willfully subjects any inhabitant of any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the constitutional laws of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. And that's 18 U.S.C. 242, violating rights under color of law. Again, subjecting me, you intend to subject me to the deprivation of my right to fail to give evidence against myself. You intend to subject me to the deprivation of my right to be secure in my papers and possessions in violation of the Fourth Amendment. I mean, you just go down the list. And this is 18 U.S.C. 247, damage to religious property. You're going to subject me to your satanic religious ceremony, your so-called court case. And this is their good faith defense. A good faith reliance on a court warrant or order, a grand jury subpoena, legislative authorization, statutory authorization, including a request from a governmental entity under Section 2703F of this title, a request of an investigator or a law enforcement officer under Section 2518.7 of this title, or a good faith determination of Section 2511.3 of this title permitted the conduct complained of, is a complete defense to any civil or criminal action brought into this chapter or any other law. And under Texas codes, no evidence obtained by any officer or other person in violation of the provisions of this constitutional laws of the state of Texas or the constitutional laws of the United States of America shall be admitted in evidence against the accused on trial of any criminal case. It is an exception to the provisions of subsection A of this article that the evidence was obtained by a pig acting in objective good faith reliance upon a warrant issued by a bought and paid for whore based on probable cause. Government officials are required to know the law. Government officials are required to know that a warrant may not be issued. A capias may only be issued after they get jurisdiction to hold a trial and a conviction. Any denials of due process or bad behavior, they always deny due process in countless ways. That's why I recommend you have one of my Kangaroo court laminated sheets with you in their so-called court. And this is my Kangaroo court laminated sheet. And it's got, you can pause the video if you want to read the citations. I'll pause it there briefly. I used to go through them, but I'm not going to go through them this time because there's just way too much. Take too long. When liberty and freedom are at stake, your silence isn't golden, it's yellow. It's a malicious prosecution. The county attorney shall represent the state in all cases, inferior courts of respective counties. That's Article 5, Section 21, Texas Constitution. Although probable cause may not be inferred from malice, malice may be inferred from lack of probable cause. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the change that we seek. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Do not give them jurisdiction. Always make a special appearance. Point out their denials of due process. Do not allow them to enter a plea. It gives them jurisdiction. You're not entering a plea. I don't give you jurisdiction. You've already demonstrated that you prejudged this matter as a bought and paid for clerk for the prosecutor. So we're impersonating a judge today, are we? And demand that it be dismissed immediately. A privateer is what they are, is privateers. This is a vessel owned and operated by private persons, but operated by a nation on certain conditions to damage the commerce of the enemy by acts of piracy. And it can also be a sailor on such a vessel. Privateering is international law, the practice of arming privately owned merchant ships for the purpose of attacking enemy trading ships. Before the practice was outlawed, government commissioned privateers by issuing letters of marque to their merchant fleets. Privateering was prohibited by the Declaration of Paris concerning naval warfare in 1856. So now they just send the pigs out to do it, which has been observed by nearly all nations since that time. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. A law of marque, a rule of reprisal allowing one who's been wronged but cannot obtain justice to take the goods of the wrongdoer found within the wrongdoer's person's precinct in satisfaction of the wrong. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Letters of marque, a license authorizing a private citizen to engage in reprisals against citizens or vessels of another nation. Congress has exclusive jurisdiction, exclusive power to grant letters of marque, but it has not done so since the 19th century, also termed letters of marque and reprisal. Formerly, it was not uncommon for a state to issue letters of marque to one of its own subjects who had met with the denial of justice in another state, authorizing him to redress the wrong for himself by forcible action, such as the seizure of the property of subjects of the delinquent state. And that's found in the Law of Nations. International law rule, adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction, federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only the statutory but the common law of a state. State and federal venue discuss the civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction or federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws, and a cause arising under such laws may be brought in or removed to federal district court under Section 24 or 28 of the former Judicial Code, now Sections 1331 and 1441 of Title 28 United States Code, giving jurisdiction to such courts of civil actions arising under the laws of the United States. Jurisdiction of the federal areas within the states, that's taken from a book called Jurisdiction Over Federal Areas Within the States, a report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction Over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, a text of the Law of Legislative Jurisdiction, submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President, June 1957. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states are not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power nationally covers those citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And that's taken from National Mutual Insurance Company, the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company. That's why it's called international law. The term special maritime territorial jurisdiction of the United States, as used in this title, includes the high seas or any other waters within the Admiralty maritime jurisdiction of the United States and out of the jurisdiction of any particular state, and any vessel belonging in whole or in part to the United States, or any citizen thereof, or any corporation created by or under the laws of the United States, or of any state, territory, district, possession thereof, when such vessel is within the Admiralty and maritime jurisdiction of the United States and out of the jurisdiction of the particular state. And that's taken from Title 18 United States Code, Section 7, Special Maritime Territorial Jurisdiction of the United States, defined under defined. Now, so again, by any, that means any vehicle, any vessel, any vehicle. That means cars, trucks, anything like that, that's owned by a U.S. citizen. It may embrace, this is Propeller Genesee Chief et al. Versus Fitzhugh. This is 12 Howard 443 U.S. 1851. It may embrace also the vehicles and persons engaged in carrying it on. It would also be the power of Congress to confer admiralty jurisdiction upon its courts over the cars engaged in transporting passengers or merchandise from one state to another, over the persons engaged in conducting them, and deny to the parties the right by the trial by jury. Okay, and so again, this is talking about admiralty jurisdiction. So anyways, the important thing to understand here is that when you're in these municipal courts, you're in the District of Columbia, and they're forging your signature onto a contract, and they're selling you into slavery. And so you tell them you want to see their certificate of participation, and they're probably going to lose interest in talking to you and kick you out of there. And but you can push it, and they'll be even more wanting to kick you out of there. It's up to you, but that's what I would do. Anyways, that's the end of this one. Check out my next one. It's going to talk about republic, your right to a Republican form of government. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.